Hey everybody, welcome to my studio. I got my drum here and my piano here. That wasn't very good. And kind of a dangerous thought here. Have you ever had something stirring in you, a thought, an idea, but you don't really voice it or talk to anybody about it because it's still formulating and maybe it's kind of edgy and you're not sure if it's safe to even mention? That's what goes on for me a lot. But then I hear someone else say the exact same thing that I've been thinking, which validates my feelings and my ideas and makes me think, you know what? This is bubbling up. This is something that's happening. And so for me, I have personally experienced in my life white guilt. I have felt guilty at times for the color of my skin, which is really strange. It's like racism against, white guilt is racism against yourself. That's kind of what it is. And even though I have absolutely nothing to do with slavery or Jim Crow laws, in fact, being Irish, the Irish were enslaved around the planet. I recently discovered, because I did a lot of research, and the Irish were enslaved around the planet for thousands of years, and nobody in my family had anything to do with slavery or anything like that. But in the past, I've actually felt guilty for the color of my skin, which I understand then if you're white and you felt guilty, I understand because I have felt it. But I also see now how utterly insane that is. I had nothing to do with slavery. I had nothing to do with Jim Crow laws or anything like it. So for me to feel bad about something that I have no control over, the color of my skin, makes no sense at all. None! I think part of my guilt goes all the way back to when I was in 5th grade and the series Roots came out. And I watched Roots. And I was intrigued by the whole thing. And a scene, I believe, was in there where they showed slaves being captured in nets and dragged. And it was awful to see these slaves being captured and then thrown onto ships and those things. All that was just so terrible to see. It made a big impression on me. And then I looked in the mirror and I saw that I was white. And then you are brought up in a culture that now is certainly revolves around much guilt, feeling much guilt with these ideas of reparations and white people owe people of color or black people something, even though I myself, of course, wasn't there, wasn't alive, had nothing to do with it, and I certainly can't control the color of my skin. But then I started doing more research recently in my life, and it shed a lot of insight into the whole thing and is beginning to help me relieve some of this guilt that is actually very detrimental, not just to me, but I believe to our entire society. Guilt that is not truly founded in something you've done to be guilty for is negative for everybody. So in doing some research, I began to find out some things that didn't really correlate with what I've been told or what I saw or what I heard about slavery and all these things. First of all, the biggest one to come to terms is that if you're a white person alive today, you had nothing to do with it. Zero. Nothing. But still, we may feel guilty about the past, which makes no sense at all. You see, because we're family. All of us, no matter the color of your skin, no matter where you were born, we're one human family. And in a family, what we do is we try to work things out. We try to forgive each other. And in families, like in this world family, sometimes we hold on to grudges for generations that have nothing to do with who you are or your children. Nothing. We'll hold on to a grudge until that grudge literally just takes over our entire psyche, our entire life, and gives us an ulcer for something we have nothing to do with. So anyway, in doing some research, and it doesn't take much research to figure this out. First of all, it's clear to me that in all of my work, being a thought leader and an author and a speaker and all these things, that first of all, we must forgive each other, just period, here and now, with our friends and family and people we have issues with. Otherwise, we hold a grudge to the grave. And so thinking about that, we must forgive each other, forgive ourselves. That's the first step. But if we're not forgiving ourselves for things we have nothing to do with, we weren't even there or alive, then maybe history will help us forgive ourselves, because it doesn't take much research, like I said, to figure a few things out. And one of them is that white people weren't going to Africa and trapping black people with nets and dragging them across the savannah. That's not what happened. I know that's what I thought, and it's what I think many people believe, but it's just not true. What was actually happening is that Africans were capturing other Africans and selling them into the slave trade. And so if you're a black person, and for some reason you blame white people today for slavery and Jim Crow, even though white people weren't around that are alive today then, they've all passed away. But for some reason you're holding a grudge against me because of the color of my skin, which I have done, the racism against myself, white guilt. But if you're a black person and you have a grudge against white people because of slavery, then you need to hold a grudge against your own people as well. Because it was other Africans who enslaved Africans, who captured them and sold them into slavery. I don't know which one's worse, to be honest, being a part of the slave trade or being a part of those who captured people of your own color, of your own race, of your own tribes, and then sold them into slavery. I don't know what's worse. I can't really figure that out. But in either case, if you feel guilty for slavery because of the color of your skin, well, consider the fact that it was people who were not the color of your skin who are actually creating the slavery, the slave trade, capturing slaves. And if you're a black person and you hold a grudge against white people for being a part of the slave trade, then you also need to hold a grudge against the other Africans, the other black people who are capturing black people and selling them into slave trade, selling them as slaves to people of all colors, not just white people, but people all over the planet were buying slaves, people of all colors. So to me, it's craziness, all of it, to be living it today. To me, the only answer in all of it is to stop doing what I call an overlap of the past onto the present. We're overlapping the past onto the present day, and we're making a big issue about it when it's not here. It's not here. And I recognize there's all kinds of psychological guilt and shame and blame and all this going on, but it doesn't make any sense. It's time to forgive and forget. It's time. It's time to be present in the here and now, love each other as one big family, and let go of the past and move on. That's the only hope we have, is to actually see the truth for what it is, that we all played a part. Our ancestors, my ancestors played no part in any of it. Zero. Like, I don't have any ancestors that I know of that captured people and enslaved them. I also have no ancestors that bought slaves and enslaved them. None. So my feeling of guilt makes no sense whatsoever. But the only thing that makes any sense to me, because we're all to blame for it, all of us, if we want to look at the color of our skin and blame the color of our skin, which makes no sense. But if we're going to do that, then all colors are to blame for slavery and for the Jim Crow that happened afterwards and everything that occurred. It just... So, what do we got to do? We got to forgive each other. We got to forgive the past. It's the past. It is gone. and be present here and now and begin doing something extremely radical. And that is to judge people on the content of their character, period, and not the color of their skin. So if you like this video, smash that like button, share it with somebody, and click the little bell. I hope you feel a little relieved from your guilt, from your shame, and have a little more insight into the truth. Spread some love. Bye. Planet Earth Trumped is now available wherever books are sold. Don't miss out. It's being hailed as the book of our time. Ha ha ha.